What's up, everyone? It's Cannan, and welcome to the special video for the Rune Factory series. It is the 15th anniversary of the series, and even though by the time this video comes out, it'll already be past that, hey, it's better late than never. Rune Factory has always been one of those series that I have deeply loved since the first entry in the series, all the way back when it came out on the original DS, and I figured since it's such a special occasion, and with Rune Factory 5 making its Western release not too long from now, I decided let's do a special video where I go back and look at all the Rune Factory games, whether I finished them or I didn't, and just give my thoughts, you know, talk about the games, talk about the main protagonists of the games, and even talking about my favorite marriage candidates. So join me as we take a look back at the Rune Factory series and as we look forward to Rune Factory 5. So first, of course, you've got to start with the first Rune Factory, which at that time it was called Rune Factory: A Fantasy Harvest Moon. And I remember back before the game came out, the creator of the series pretty much said it was Harvest Moon with a sword. Now, that interested me because not only was I a fan of Harvest Moon, but I was also a fan of RPGs, and this is what this looked like: a Harvest Moon game that plays like a fantasy RPG. Now, of course, Harvest Moon fits into the RPG category with some of the things you've got to do. It's not just a life sim, but it's also farm sim, a time management kind of game, and it also falls into the RPG genre. And that's what interested me, so of course I picked it up the moment it came out. Now, the protagonist of the first game is called Raguna, as I'm guessing, and you can name the protagonist whatever you want, but Raguna would be the first of many Rune Factory protagonists who would start off the game with amnesia, not knowing who they are. And I guess that was kind of their way to have the main protagonist be a clean slate. That way you could be the character in a lot of ways. But these get, like, I remember playing the first one, and of course, being the first one in the series, it is the most simple of the series, but I seem to remember the main story not being what I thought it was going to be. Like, it's there, but it could have been better. The farming was very straight, simple. You know, you plant vegetables, you water them, they grow. But big major difference was you don't have cows, you don't have chickens, you don't have sheep. You have monsters that resemble farm animals. You had a monster that, you know, looks like a cow. You had a monster that looked like a chicken. You have one that looks like a sheep, which is pretty much the mascot of the series. The town in the first game, I remember it was like you would enter the town, and like the town would be, it would be like up on stairs in a way. You would go up and there'd be some buildings, and you'd go again, there'd be more, go again there. So the town was designed very simply in the first game. I did fully complete the story in this one. I don't know if I did everything, but it's been so long ago. I only played it all the way through once. I did try other playthroughs of it, but I just never fully completed it, because that's the thing about Rune Factory. They're very enjoyable, but they take up a lot of time to finish, especially if you want to do everything. Another thing that the game had was side quests for NPCs. Now, of course, there was some NPCs who had stories you could follow. Most of the NPCs that had a real side quest, though, were marriage candidates, because you had to do their side quest to marry them. I remember one in particular. It was, she's pretty much the daughter of the mayor, and she's sickly. She's been sick most of her whole life, but it's not caused by an illness or something like that. It's more of a curse. And I forgot if you had to give her this stone to take it away, or you had to take you had to pretty much had to raise your affection enough to take a stone that was given to her, and that stone turns out to be what's causing the ailment and all that, and of course that would lead you to marry her. So it was things like that, like very simple early RPG stuff. It kind of played in a way a old style retro RPG, not gameplay wise, but as far as quests go in some ways. Combat was very simple. You know, you use a sword just like you would your hoe, your watering can, you know, a brush and all that. So yeah, combat was very simple. This was before they got really in depth with their gameplay. Dungeons that's the most thing. It's definitely almost like a dungeon crawler. The stronger you get and the more things you do, you unlock the ability to go to a different dungeon, and it could get tiresome, especially with how some of the dungeons were, but it was nothing too difficult. But then again, I'm the type that always over levels before I go to the next part of a game, so I was pretty over leveled for most of the game. I can't tell you how the story ends because, like I said, this was a long time ago, but it was a very enjoyable game. If anyone ever wants to get into the Rune Factory series, I don't think there's anything wrong with starting with the original one, but if you're coming from, say, Rune Factory 4 and going back, it may be a bit of a shock with how simple and really how dated the game can look in a lot of ways. So before we head to Rune Factory 2, I'm going to mention my favorite marriage candidate, or Bachelorette, in the game. And the Bachelorettes, what I really liked about this, it wasn't simply just giving them gifts and raising their affection and just seeing cutscenes. Most of them had a quest you had to complete. Some very simple, some extremely hard and time-consuming to do. But out of all of them in the game, this one has, I think, the most lengthy unlock criteria, and that would be Lynette. And she is actually not available until after you beat the main story. She actually is on the bad guy's side. She is kind of an antagonist at first, but by the end of the game, she has seen the error of her ways and she starts living in the village, and you can eventually romance her and marry her. And I just really liked her. I like her design. I like short-haired girl. Like you can ask Jess. I prefer short hair on women, and I just thought she had the coolest design. She has one of the more cooler character arcs in the first game, and so yeah, I went with Lynette. So moving on, let's get to Rune Factory 2. And I will go ahead and say I never finished 2. And it's been a long time since I played it, so there may be a lot of things I don't remember. But you gotta remember, when I got Rune Factory 2, I think Tides of Destiny was already out, so it was kind of, I bought it to go back, but I just never got the chance to complete it. The main protagonist of this one is called Kyle. Pretty normal name, going from Raguna to Kyle, but you can name him whatever you want. And from what I remember, they didn't change all that much in this game. I can't remember if it's in 2 or 3, but I know 2 takes place sometime after the first one, and I think one of the Bachelorettes, it's either in 2 or 3, where one of the kid characters from 1 has grown up and is now a marriage candidate in part 2. Gameplay wise, I can't really remember if there was anything majorly different. Like I said, it's been a while. I only played a few hours of the game, maybe a year or 2 in it, just enough to get married. And my favorite Bachelorette in part 2 was Alicia, and as you can see why. She, like, for a younger me, she was pretty muddy. Like, yeah, that's the one I want to go with. So a very big interesting thing here was how this game handled the children that you and your marriage candidate have. it kind of went a little Dragon Quest V here, in that the first half of the game you play as the main protagonist, Kyle. Then something happens and the main protagonist like disappears, and you start playing as the offspring, as the kid, to find out what happened. I do remember going long enough to where I got married, but I don't think I can't remember if you have to wait and have a kid like in most of them, or it just time skipped and boom, you have kids. I do not remember. But this was something very new and something I don't think they've really done again in the series, because like I said, there was a few of them I did not finish. And sadly 2 was one of them. If I could play it over again, I probably would play it. But from what I remember, it really wasn't much different than the first one. It was still kind of, the series was still kind of very early in its run, so they didn't change much, you know. Different characters, different setting, and that's really all it. Gameplay wise, it was still relatively the same. So now moving on to Rune Factory Frontier. This was on the Wii, and as you can see, characters from the first Rune Factory returned in this. You once again play as Raguna, but this time it is in a different town, a different village. It has some new characters, but most of the pretty much all of them except Lynette, I think, does come back. But we also have some new marriage candidates. This one confused me when it came out. I didn't know if this was supposed to be a direct sequel to Rune Factory 1, which I think it's supposed to be, but it was just weird to me because of what I played of it. It didn't seem like, it seemed like the events of the first game weren't even acknowledged in a way. And I was really confused, like, why are all the marriage candidates from the first town moving to this new one all of a sudden? You know, it was weird to me. Now, this is another one I did not ever fully finish, and actually, if you ask me, this was one of the hardest games in the series to find. When I found out this game existed, I had no idea. I had never seen it shown anywhere. Had no idea. Never saw it in the store. Nothing. I would go to GameStop always looking to see if they had this game. They never did. Until I started going to a little store out that's a local store. It's a used game store, but they have movies and figurines and all that stuff. But I would always check the Wii section to see if they had this game, and every time I looked, it was nope, never. And then finally one visit, there it was in its original case, the booklet, everything. And from what I remember, it wasn't even that expensive. But this game fell into a trap that a lot of games at the time fell for me. It was on the Wii. I was never a big fan of the Nintendo Wii. The only games I really played a lot on for the Wii was Super Smash Bros. Brawl, The Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword. There was a few more. I can't 100% remember what else I played on the Wii, but other than that, the Wii mostly played GameCube games for me. So yeah, I was not a big fan of the Wii. I was not a big fan of trying to play this game with Wii controls. And so I just lost interest. I just had no interest in playing it. I regret that, because I've never seen a copy of the game again, because I don't have it anymore. And last time I looked, it was kind of expensive now. But because it's one of the, I don't even have a Wii anymore, so it doesn't matter. But it's one of those games that's very hard to find. You're very lucky if you find it in a secondhand store. So even though I didn't finish it, I played enough of it to, I believe, at least get married. And I didn't bother with any of the Rune Factory 1 Bachelorettes because I had already experienced them in Rune Factory 1. So I went for the new candidates in this, and out of all of them, I picked Selfie. I thought she was cute. I liked her design. I liked her personality. She's kind of like this, I believe she was like a librarian or something. And yeah, I just thought she was really cute. I thought out of the new one, she was the most unique looking. And unlike some other of the new candidates, there's 2 of them you have to wait until after you beat the game and stuff like that. So for as far as new candidates, I went for that one because you could, I believe, I could be wrong, like I said, it's been years, that I could marry during the main game. I wouldn't have to wait until I beat the whole entire thing. So yeah, Rune Factory Frontier, it's an odd entry in the series if you ask me. Like, I kind of wish they had went with just a new protagonist and all new characters, but I think they wanted to keep that familiarity with Raguna, and so they brought him back, plus all the other marriage candidates besides one, my favorite one from the first one. I don't think Lynette was in Frontier. I don't think she was. But yeah, after that would come Rune Factory 3, and I believe this would be the last game in the series to have the subtitle of Fantasy Harvest Moon, because after this, Rune Factory kind of developed into its own series. In this game, you play as, I can't remember if it was either Mika or Micah, and as you can see, he can pretty much turn into a monster. I don't remember the story specifics of that, but it was very unique to play as in human form and then in a monster form. So you had a little bit of a double story here, kind of a double life, if you may. I got pretty far in Rune Factory 3, but I never finished it, so I don't know how the main story played out. I don't really remember if there was any new, like, see, for me, Rune Factory 2 and 3 were just not that different from 1 for me. Like, 3 was better in that it had a better village map, and really the combat and all that, I think, was more like what you would see in Rune Factory 4 eventually. But yeah, there was just not much to talk about, really. And of course, my favorite Bachelorette from Rune Factory 3 is Raven. And it's funny that, you know, this is also a Ruby channel, and one of my favorite characters in Ruby is also called Raven. Raven, to me, was my favorite because I liked how mysterious she was, how kind of, like, in a way, she was kind of Sundry, in a way, or Tsundere, or however you say it. Very kept to herself, very mysterious. And that, you know, that's kind of attractive. So I did go with Raven. I do remember that. And it's funny, later in Rune Factory 4, Raven would show up again. So I was like, yay, but I can't marry her, sadly. So yeah, Rune Factory 3, I think I played less of it than I did 2, but I'm not sure. And so there's not much I like remember. Because by the time I actually got a copy of Rune Factory 3, I think the 3DS was out by that time, by the time I finally grabbed a copy, and I was just playing other games. I just put it down one day, and like, I'm sure you all know how that is. You'll start playing a game, and then a new game will come out, and then you get all into that, and you just completely lose interest in that other game. And then by the time you remember, oh yeah, I was playing that game, you load up your save, and it's like, I have no idea where I'm at. And you just don't want to start a new game, so you just never play it again. So yeah, I do regret not finishing those 3 games, but that's just how it happens. But I did enjoy them. They were very, very enjoyable. Next, we are looking at Rune Factory Tides of Destiny. And I have to say, this is probably one of my most favorite games in the series. I did complete this one. I enjoyed it that much. And one big reason why I enjoyed it is because it was on the PlayStation 3. It was also on the Wii, but I played the PS3 version. And this one was interesting. It was technically the first game in the series to feature a male and female protagonist. The male protagonist being Aiden, and the female protagonist being Sonia, but there's a catch. So spoiler warning for anyone that's never played Tides of Destiny, and if you might be planning on playing it. At the beginning of the game, you know, something happens, and Sonia ends up, her soul ends up inside the body of Aiden. So he's got her living inside of him while he's going on this quest and doing all this stuff. she's a protagonist though, because after you beat the main game, she gets her body back, and then you can decide to start playing as her, which I didn't like. I understand why she's not available for most of the game because of the story, but it's almost like, why didn't you just make her a marriage candidate only instead of, oh, you can play as a girl, but you have to beat the main story, and then after that, there's not really much to do except farm and get married. That's literally it. So I believe there was some people who were kind of jaded about that. Like, oh, you tease a girl protagonist, but she's not playable for like 90% of the game. And it's like funny, you play the whole entire game as Aiden, and it's like once she gets free, you can just retire him and she takes over. She starts living in the house and starts running the farming and all that. It's wild. But this game was very fun in that it was on a console, had full console controls. The gameplay and fight and like battle system in it was freeform. It was, it wasn't turn-based or anything like that. And I seem to remember, I think I loved it that it had dual wielding in it. You could dual wield these two swords. So I went with that because it was fast. Maybe not the best damage dealer, but I seem to remember liking the story a lot. But the one thing that threw me off was the farming aspect. So when you move into your house, there's no barn. There's no place to plant vegetables or anything like that. I was like, well, hey, this is a Harvest Moon game. Where's the Rune Factory game? Where's the farming? Well, you get a golem in the game, and it's a big one. You ride him pretty much out through the ocean, and you can find like all these islands, and you can find treasure under the ocean, or a giant monster will come out and you'll have like a Godzilla versus King Kong kind of fight with them. But these islands that you discover throughout the story are where you plant your vegetables. There's a spring island, a summer island, a fall island, all that, just that kind of stuff. I think there was a winter one where you could like mine and stuff like that. And of course, when you're in dungeons, you can tame monsters to be your farm animals. But the thing is, the golem is also the barn. You have to go inside the golem, and there's all your yeah, I didn't care for that much. It was different, it was unique, but that was a little too much for me. I just prefer my house, my field, and my monster barns. That's all I want. I don't need a golem to to teleport me to the islands that are far, far away where I'm planting my vegetables, and I also don't need my golem to act as a barn for my animals. But looking past that, I actually really enjoyed this game. I usually don't like crafting in games. I just don't really care for it, but I spent a lot of time crafting in this game to level certain things up. So yeah, Tides of Destiny is a very enjoyable game. It doesn't have one of the better reviews in the series, but in a way, Rune Factory 4 is probably a better game. But if you want that console feel, because before this game, the only console game you had in the series was Frontier on the Wii. All the others were handhelds. So if you wanted a console experience for Rune Factory and feel like you're playing like a Harvest Moon RPG hybrid, this would probably be the game. Now, I actually have two favorite Bachelorettes in this. There is... it looks like it's spelled Sarah, but it's actually pronounced Sarah. And I just really liked her because I like the tomboy look. I just always have. I think it's a great character design. She's a fun character. And yeah, she was, I think, the first one I married. And then, of course, my second save, because, I always make extra saves before I get married. That way I can see the different relationships without starting the game all over. My second one would be Lily, and she is the eldest of 3 sisters. And yes, all 3 of those sisters are marriage candidates. So yeah, that's interesting. But kind kind of stereotypical design, but she's a really interesting character. She's on the front cover, so I think she was kind of meant to be the, like, well, actually her and another one of her sisters is on the front cover. So, and Sonia is too. So, and I want to talk about Sonia for a real quick thing. Sonia is a marriage candidate for Aiden after she gets her body back. And it's kind of hinted throughout the game that Sonia does have feelings for Aiden, because it seems like every time he has a flirty interaction with one of the other girls, she kind of gets jealous in a way. And, you know, it kind of has that whole, you know, childhood friends falling in love because they went through this journey together and witnessed all this hardship together. But it just stinks that she's not in the game enough. Now, if you play as her, you do have 4 bachelors that like Aiden gets like almost 10 bachelorettes. I don't think it's exactly 10, but like it's a good bit, where she only gets 4, including Aiden himself. And I didn't play as her just because I just didn't see a point in it at that time. So I didn't bother with any of the bachelors. If I did, it probably just would have been Aiden, just to, you know, because the other ones I just didn't care for. But Tides of Destiny is definitely, if you want to go back and play the older games in the Rune Factory series, it is definitely one of the ones you should play. Now that gets us to Rune Factory 4 and Rune Factory 4 Special. Originally it came out on the 3DS. That's the version I've played. We do have the special version, which Jess plays. I've actually not touched it since we've had it, because I'm just more interested in getting my hands on Rune Factory 5. But I remember when this one came out. I actually got it that Christmas, the year it came out, and I loved it. I thought Rune Factory 4 was the best one in the series. Now, unlike Tides of Destiny, I feel like Rune Factory 4 does the dual, like, it's the first really proper one to have a male and female protagonist. You can either play as Lest or Frey. And it's the same as most of the games. I think, if I can remember correctly, Tides of Destiny didn't have an amnesia story, and I don't think this one did either. Like, pretty much you're dropped in this kingdom, and depending on who you play, you're mistaken for the prince or princess that was coming to visit, and the prince or princess shows up, and they're pretty much like, just go ahead, pretend to be me. I've got other things to do. So this one was wild in that the combat was way better. Had way more voice acting in it than most games in the series. I think, if I may be wrong here, but I think this one was really when anime cutscenes in the game really took on. Frontier might have had them. I know Tides of Destiny didn't have it. I don't know if any of the original DS games, the original 3, had any, but this one is where they kind of really started putting more anime cutscenes in it that were actually voiced and all that. I also like the fact that some of the bachelors and bachelorettes are like human monster hybrids, which was cool. You know, I know some people say, oh, it's the furry, you know, the furry craze and all that, but I really enjoyed this one. I think I did beat it, but it's been so long, because you gotta remember, this was the last Rune Factory game before the original company that put it out went out of business and went bankrupt. So it was a long time ago, but I really enjoy this one. To me, you could start into the Rune Factory series and start at 4, because it is just a great game. It was actually, I believe, the most successful Rune Factory game at that time. As far as favorite bachelorette, I've got to go with Chlorica. I think she's cute. I seem to go toward characters with darker hairstyles. I think the fact that she falls asleep all the time is cute. She's, you know, dressed in this like butler outfit, which is very endearing. And if I had to say my favorite bachelorette, it'd be her. Now, for Bachelor, I never played as the female character in this one, but Jess has. So I'm going to mention Jess's favorite Bachelor, and that's Leon. Don't know much about him because, like I said, I didn't play as the female character, and as a male character, I just didn't really get to know him that well. But I do think he's probably got the coolest design. And of course, he's pretty much a wolf in a way, so Jess gravitated toward him because she loves wolves. And I think Jess would say that Rune Factory 4 is probably her favorite game, one of her favorite games on the Switch, because she's played that more than anything else, I think, besides Let's Go Eevee. Like, she loves Rune Factory 4, and I don't blame her. It's probably, I've not played Rune Factory 5 yet, so I can't say it's the second best, but it's definitely probably the best game in the series as of right now. And speaking of Rune Factory 5, it's time to move to Rune Factory 5. Rune Factory 5 is already out in Japan. It releases in America on the 22nd, so still got a couple of weeks until it comes out. And I have to say, this is probably my most anticipated game of the year. I know it's weird, there's games like Horizon that's out, Elden Ring, and all that, and Rune Factory 5 is my most, but I'm such a big Harvest Moon and RPG fan. I don't care how niche the title is. If it's something that I am excited for, I can't help it. And of course, I'll get to some of the things about the game here in a minute, but I'm really excited because both me and Jess have the Earthmate edition pre-ordered, and I do plan to do a unboxing of it, along with a Let's Play series, of course. But so yeah, what we know as of right now, which I know there's a lot more information out there, but I've kind of kept away from it because I don't want to risk being spoiled by anything. But the main characters are Eris and Alice, and a lot of people don't like their designs. They think they're kind of too color coded in a way, but you can change your outfit and stuff like that in the game. But there's been a lot said about the game about the frame rate issues and bugs and crashes and all that. Hopefully they have some kind of fix for when it releases everywhere else. Who knows? But I've not played the game myself, so I can't really comment on that because it's a game that has, as of right now, not been released in the West. But I can work around that. I want to play the game first, give my thoughts on it later. I do know there's been, like I said, tidbits about the game, about its gameplay, about some of the features in it, but I've stayed away from that. But I may look up more here soon because I might want to do a leading up to release video for Rune Factory 5, maybe going over some things I'm looking forward to in the game, some things I may have concerns about, and stuff like that. So, of course, we got to talk about favorite Bachelorette and favorite Bachelor. Well, my favorite Bachelorette, and this is going to be the first one I marry in the game as Alice, and that is Ludmila. What can I say? She's a succubus. I like her flirty attitude. I want to see what happens in this relationship. I even took a quiz for, who would be your perfect soulmate or whatever in the game, and I got Ludmila. So I was like, it's destiny. It's fate. And this one I may actually play as the male character as well, because I gotta say, I'm really, as far as favorite Bachelor goes, I'm really liking Cecil. Don't know why. I was like, you know what? I may actually do a I don't know if it's Eris or Ares or like, the Greek god or something, but I may do an Ares and Cecil playthrough. We'll just have to see. Depends on how much I enjoy the game. But so yeah, that's pretty much going back, like not really an in-depth look, but pretty much me going back and reminiscing with the series that I actually prefer over Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons. I just like the RPG linear storytelling of this series over just like the open-ended play of Story of Seasons. So hopefully this game does well enough to where we get a Rune Factory 6. I would love for the series to continue. So yeah, that's pretty much my look back at the Rune Factory series. Sorry I didn't have as much information for some of the titles, but like I said, I never finished a lot of them. But the ones that I did finish, whether it be Rune Factory 1, Tides of Destiny 4, I think those are the key ones to really play. Rune Factory 1 because it's where everything started. Rune Factory Tides of Destiny because it was pretty much a sneak peek at what a Rune Factory game on a console could be like. And then of course, as of right now, the best one in the series, Rune Factory 4. So if someone asked me which ones to try, it would be those. Rune Factory 1 just to see where it started, Tides of Destiny, and Rune Factory 4. Jury's still out on 5 because it's not out yet here. But hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, click that like button because those likes really help the channel. Leave me a comment, tell me which games in the series you have played, and if you're looking forward to Rune Factory 5. As always, guys, this is Cannan. Me and Jess love you all very, very much. Stay safe out there, take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.